Okay, so in the last video, we went over the WRTNS or TPS, the Western Rhetorical Traditions in Public Speaking. And today, or in this video, we're actually going to move on, keeping the same genre. Power Rangers is my favorite Power Ranger of all time, the Green Ranger. Green because it's my favorite color, but also green because he's awesome. But we're going to continue on with our micro lectures for this week, and we're going to be going on to the second concepts that we're going to be covering in this week, and that's citation and supporting materials. And those concepts are going to be very useful for you guys in your informative and persuasive speeches. And so I'm going to give you all of the details of how and what that is. And as we went over in our last video for the learning objectives, we're going to be able to kind of see how we're able to identify, clarify, and implement, and how to implement and where to implement these citations within our speaking, particularly within the informative and persuasive speeches. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with everyone and we'll continue. All right. So we're going to go on. And so citations and supporting materials and how you're going to be using citations within your speeches. Okay. So first and foremost, how to use supporting materials for your speeches. And so using supporting materials for your informative and persuasive speeches can be done in a variety of ways. You can do them in a number of ways. There's almost infinite possibilities in which you can use your supporting materials. However, there are a few popular ways in which you guys are able to do this, okay? And these are the ways that I would like to see you guys do this, all right? And so the first way is going to be using a direct quote, right? Directly quoting the source of materials or the source of information that you have gathered to support your argument or to support your informative or persuasive speech. So we're going to go over direct quotes in more detail in the next couple of slides, but I just wanted to show you guys that a direct quote is something that comes directly from the source in which you pulled it out of. All right. Next one is paraphrasing. Now, this is not to be confused with what we went over as far as plagiarism, right? So yes, there is a paraphrasing plagiarism, and then there's also a paraphrasing citational sense, right? And we're going to go over this in greater detail because I don't want this to be kind of confused, but this is something that you guys can use, but it is also, it can be considered plagiarism if not done correctly, okay? An expert testimony. And this is going to be something that you'll use not as a scholarly reference, but it's going to be used as like a pop culture reference, right? Or something that you pull out of like a newspaper or a magazine or something like that. Something that has supporting material. But in any case, let's go over these in greater detail right now. So first and foremost, direct quotes, right? So direct quotes is defined as your book as testimony that is presented word for word. And what does that mean? Right? Testimony that is presented word for word. And so as an example of this, you can see right here, and this is proper APA style direct quoting, all right? So if I was giving a speech about about dolphins, and I simplified this obviously yours is going to be a much more elaborate thing, but this is how I will do it, right? So if this came out straight from an article that was citing this guy named Shane Burrell, it would say Shane Burrell, instructor at California State University, San Bernardino, likes dolphins, said in Burrell, where it says, see there, Burrell, it says Burrell 2020, and then you have to give the exact page number, and that's P.297, right? So that parentheses portion, that is a citation of a direct quote, which was the quote that was Shane Burrell, instructor at California State University, San Bernardino, likes dolphins, right? Like that is the direct quote. But the parentheses shows the citation of where that came from, right? So that is like the direct citation of where that came from and how it is used, right? And this is a perfect example of how it should be done with inside your outlines. So if you're going to direct quote somebody in your outline, this is the exact way that you should do it on paper. So as you're writing, this is what it needs to look like on paper, okay? So if there is any question about that, please like send me an email or like come to office hours. I'm going to discuss this the next time that we meet, just so that it has better clarification. But keep in mind that this right here is the exact way you would write out a direct quote and putting it inside your outline, right? And I'm going to show you how to do an oral citation later, but this is a written direct quote. Okay, next, paraphrasing. And as I said before, paraphrasing is not to be confused with the paraphrasing that is done in plagiarism, okay? So the difference here is paraphrasing, and as it's defined as your book, is to restate or summarize a source's ideas in your own words, okay? And the way that you can do this, right, is if you're arguing something about like dolphins, right? Well, you could say, well, an instructor at CSUSB says that he likes dolphins. And then what you could do is you could use right here, right? I can't find my mouse. You could use this right here as a citation minus the page number, because you're not directly quoting anything. You're just saying, in an article that has stated that an instructor at California State University, San Bernardino likes dolphins, and then all you have to do is put Burrell 2020, and that's it. That is a paraphrase, right? So the difference between a paraphrase in citation versus a paraphrase that is plagiarism, sorry, I lost my words, is that the plagiarism doesn't have that parentheses with the citation where they got that information. You could say an instructor at California State University, San Bernardino likes dolphins without the citation, and that is plagiarism, because you need to be able to back up where you got that information from and why you're paraphrasing it. And even scholars who are in grad school have a really big problem with this because they don't cite the information where they get it from. And that is considered plagiarism, and you could get into a lot of trouble for that. So please, please, please keep in mind that when we're paraphrasing things, we always need to have that citation if it's not a direct quote, right? So if it's not a direct quote, don't put the page number, but still have that citation, right? So if we're saying something that happened in an article, we still need that citation of where you got that from to tell us that it's their idea. We're just rewording it to make it sound more fluid within our own speeches or within our own essays and arguments, right? Because again, if you don't, it's plagiarism and not a good idea. So if there is questions about this, please again, email, let me know, because I can clarify this as best as possible, but just keep in mind, I do place a lot of emphasis on this. Okay, expert testimony. So before we can talk about expert testimony, we actually need to talk about testimony in itself, right? And so testimony is defined in your book as quotations or paraphrases used to support a point, right? So for you guys, it would be citations or quotations or paraphrasing that's going to help support your informative speech topic or your persuasive speech topic, right? And that's where it's going to come into play. So when we think about testimony, think about the materials that you are using, the supporting material you're using to be able to back up your point. Okay. And so expert testimony is defined in your book as people from who are recognized experts within the field. So an expert testimony, it can be scholarly, but it also is mostly pop culture. And when I talk about pop culture, and we're going to go over that in the next video in greater detail, but in pop culture reference, and this is where your extra sources will come from, because you need 5 in total, but 3 are scholarly, and 2 are going to be pop culture references. And that can come from like the LA Times, the New York Times, the CDC, anything with a .org or a .gov, I'm down with. Anything that's .com, that's not the New York Times or the Washington Post or the Huffington Post or the Herald, or anything that's an accredited source of news, will not be accepted for pop culture reference. And I say this because these publications go through many fact checkings, right? They have lots of people who are like source checking everything all the time. And there's actually a movie on it, but we won't get into that. But in any case, that is what I would like to see from an expert testimony, is that you're taking it from these media sources that actually have evidence to back up their claims, or back up like an op-ed piece, or back up a features piece or something like that. So I would like to see your explanations of expert testimony that come from these particular sources to be accredited sources, right? They don't have to be scholarly, but they need to be at least accredited. So, all right. So we're going to stop that one right there. And next, we're going to be going over the difference between scholarly and pop culture references, but you guys should have already answered all of the questions that I placed in this video. As we keep going forward, there's going to be a couple of more questions. Pay attention to these questions, guys, because I'm thinking about using these for the final, so keeping you on your toes. In any case, yes, so go ahead and answer all of those questions, and I'm going to see everyone in the next video. All right? Okay, guys. Bye.